everybody, welcome to our second workshop. My name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. I'm so happy, I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our second workshop. I am pumped for you to experience our guest speaker later on this evening. But before we get started, I want to touch up on a couple of quick points. So you are starting your mentor relationship. That is awesome. Hopefully you've had your first conversation. I'd love to learn about it. Post maybe some of the key talking points that you've had for your first meeting in the comment section. Would love to learn about how that first meeting is gone. But yeah, this workshop's all about how to network in a genuine way and really make the most out of it. This workshop should be about an hour long. As a reminder, I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Once we have asked those questions, I'll expect you to answer them. That's how you get credit for participating and being here at the workshops. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, this is what's really key. I mean, genuine networking is such a pivotal component to building rapport, to getting job offers, to getting promotions. Really, if you can hone this skill, if you can hone this ability, you will be set professionally, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hard skills, that being your ability to crunch numbers, to do some form of engineering, to do some form of science, like all those things are pretty good. They're very easy to measure. So it's very clear whether or not you are better or worse than somebody on a hard skill. But your soft skills are much more difficult to measure. But those soft skills are really what's going to set you apart. I mean, as they say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is the workshop about how you can know more people and have a stronger bond with them, because then it goes to your reputation. Because if you have a reputation for treating people like garbage, you're not going to have a great reputation. People are going to want to help connect you with other people. If you come in with low energy, if you come in with a bad state, if you come in talking trash about other people, you're not going to put yourself in a good position. And so I want to be very clear. When it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship, it is not all about the transaction. If you're coming into a networking situation, you're thinking to yourself, what is in it for me? You are not going to have a positive outcome. I promise you on that. I really want to be clear. It's not all about landing the job or the internship. Sometimes it's about building the relationship and then playing the long game, because ultimately that may turn into an opportunity because they built a rapport with you. But if you burn them, or if you make them feel like you are using them to get to a location that you would like to be, they can smell that on you. They can smell it from a mile away. And that is not great. As they say, desperation reeks. You do not want to be desperate. You don't want to be perceived as someone that's a user or a taker. You want to be a giver. You want to be someone who gives energy to relationships. The first place to start is being genuine with how you talk to people and how you build rapport with people. Now, this is something we talked about last time, but it is so important, and that is the 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. As we've said before, your state is most important. So physically, how are you? Physically, what is going on with your world? Physically, I don't care what is happening. If you recently broke up with your significant other, if your dog just died, if you got some bad news, I don't care what's going on. If you get up, if you shake it out, if you let it loose, you will get yourself into a positive state. So I want to challenge you to do that right now. I want you to get up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're releasing blood to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for retaining information. If you're just sitting there on a couch or in a chair in a slumped over position, your likelihood of retaining any of the information we talk about tonight is severely diminished. But if you come in standing up, moving around, getting your blood flowing, you are much more likely to retain this information. Have you ever found it difficult in a classroom setting to remember what your professor says if you've been sitting for 3 hours? That's why 3-hour lectures really struggle to work. They're not very effective because people are not moving around. Your brain needs blood to retain information. So get up, get moving, get out, get loose. Now, the second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? I promise you right now, you will achieve up to the goals that you set for yourself in life and no higher. So you might as well shoot for the stars and land on the moon than shoot for the moon and end up in nowhere. Because if you are not focused about where you want to be, or really having a big, hairy, crazy, audacious goal for yourself, what are you doing? Like, are you just saying to yourself, like, I'm cool with winding up short, with, settling down and just settling for everything in my life? If that's the case, this program's not for you. I can tell you that right now. This program's not for you if you're trying to settle. But if you're someone that wants to go for it, if you want to go big, if you want to go out there, for the opportunities that you want to see in your life, this program is absolutely for you. Let this program be a springboard. Let your mentor be a Sherpa that's guiding you up this mountain of life and success and help you get to where you want to be. This is someone who wants to guide you, that wants to help you. They wouldn't have signed up for this program if they weren't interested in seeing you succeed. So I want to be very clear with you. What is the story for why you will be successful? Understand that, hone it, be prepared. In fact, I would challenge you to write this down. Write it on a piece of paper. It's more likely to stick in your mind if you write it on a piece of paper of where you want to be. Stick it up on your wall. Stick it up on your desk. Stick it up on your dresser. Stick it up on your mirror. Something that's going to remind you of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year from now. That will help you set the target of where you want to go. Because if you don't set these goals, you're going to be on a path that's got really no clear outcome of where you want to go. So the last part is your strategy. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? Now, when it comes to strategies, I'm a big believer in routines. When I say routines, I mean literally getting into a daily habit that you can practice regularly so then you can be better at a skill. We think about habits sometimes in a negative light because we think about people just being addicted to bad actions, but I believe that habits can also be attributed in a positive light as well. What is a positive habit you can get into to help you build more genuine relationships? I believe one thing you can do is to be intentional about having an informational interview every single week with a new person, with a new professional in your field. You can leverage LinkedIn. You could go to a professor's office hours. You could talk to a friend of yours whose parent works in the field that you're interested in working towards, or a family friend that you know works in the field that you're interested in working towards. If you set up one informational interview every single week, and by an informational interview, I want to be very clear. This is a conversation. This isn't an interview. You're not trying to get a job from this person. You're just trying to get knowledge about what this work is like. Set up one of those a week. I can promise you they're going to start making introductions for you. They're going to start helping you get to where you want to be. By the way, if your goals change over time, that's okay. That's totally okay. You can share with them how your goals have changed, and they're going to want to keep helping you over time. I'll give you a perfect example of this. As an entrepreneur, I set goals all the time. I have a board of mentors. I literally have about 50 to 100 mentors that I send once every 3 months an update of what's going on with the business. Here's the thing though, I've pivoted this business many, many times. Now, initially when I first got started, I was thinking to myself like, oh, well, they're my mentors. Like, if I tell them that I've pivoted, will they think I'm a total failure? Will they not want to help me anymore? What I found is that is absolutely not the case. They're always there to support me. Mentors that have been with me for 5+ years still give me guidance, still help make introductions, still help me out and support me as my mission has grown, as my goals have grown. That is the nature of mentoring relationships. That is the nature of relationships in general. You should keep your network up to date with what is going on in your world because they will want to see you succeed. But the key is that you ask them for something specific. When I meet with my mentors or when I send them an email, I ask for something very, very specific. I don't say, hey, if you know anybody in XYZ space, if you could introduce me, would love that. Why? Because it's not at the top of their mind. What I'll do is I'll physically go onto their LinkedIn profile, look at who they're connected with and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Jane Doe, John Doe, Shelby Doe, and Jenny Doe. I know that you may not be connected with all 4 of those people, but if you are connected with one of them, would you mind introducing me? Here's an email template that you could copy and paste to introduce me. Now I've made it extremely specific and easy for them to take an action step to help me out. And that is how you can continue to grow your relationships, your network, and build rapport with people. And just keep them in the loop of what's going on in your world. So I just want to be very clear. It's about building genuine relationships, and it's about when you're building those genuine relationships and then you're asking them for introductions or connecting with more people through those relationships, being very specific and making it as easy as possible for them to help you out. I really want to stress this. It's so important. Genuine networking. If you can take anything from this whole program, if it's genuine networking, and by genuine networking, I mean really listening, taking an active and keen interest in who you are speaking with, you are going to be set. You're going to be in a great position. Because at the end of the day, it's not your elevator pitch. It's not going to be anything about you that makes someone interested in you. It's going to be about your ability to listen to them. In fact, I can tell you multiple times where I didn't say a word in a conversation. I just nodded my head yes and asked questions about things that somebody else has said. And at the end of the conversation, whether that be 30 minutes or 60 minutes long, they said, man, Garrett, you are such a great conversationalist. Or, gosh, I feel like I just had such a great conversation with you. And the funniest thing about it is I didn't actually say a word. The point is this: people love to talk about themselves Why? Because people are really interested in things that they're interested in. People wouldn't choose to spend the time that they have on this earth in the way that they did unless they thought it was the most optimum way of spending their time. Therefore, things that interest them, things that they choose to spend their time on, are things that interest them and ultimately make you interesting to them because you've taken an interest in those actions and activities. I hope that makes sense. If you want to rewatch that, take that back 30 seconds because I think it's really important. People, ultimately, at the end of the day, people care about themselves. People care about things that they are interested in because they've chosen to spend the time that they have on those tasks. So with that said, I'm excited to jump in to our guest speaker this evening. Really, the whole point of this workshop is about genuine networking. By the way, if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'll add you to our LinkedIn group where we discuss different topics and just you can add different topics, ask any questions, and expand us to our entire Ambition in Motion network. Connect with me. I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I'm so excited to get started. Let's jump into our guest speaker this evening. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to dive into our topic of how to network in a genuine way. Really, this is a very interesting time to be thinking about networking because we've got COVID, we got to do virtual things, we got to be trying to reach out, but not be so transactional that people think, I only want an internship from this person or I only want a job from this person. But at the same time, be able to get our message across that, yeah, I am interested in a job or an internship, but do it in a genuine way. It's a fine line to walk, but we've got a great guest speaker with us here this evening to help us walk through that line and really find genuine ways to build connections. We've got Ryan Lommel. Ryan is an experienced contact center executive and business transformation leader working with Fortune 500, 1,000, and 2,000 companies in industries such as telecommunications, mobility, cloud, electronic government, e-commerce, software, retail, and media. Ryan is currently the vice president of sales and service delivery at One Support. Ryan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I should have you do my intros all the time. I like what you had to say there. This time was great.
Well, I mean, I was just following your LinkedIn lead, so it was made it easy on me. But Ryan, I know I gave a brief intro for you, but I'd love if you could just maybe share with the audience a little bit more about who you are and how you got into the work that you're doing today.
Sure. It's actually I've got kind of a little bit of an interesting story there as far as how I got here, and I was actually in college when I started at Telenetwork, which is now One Support, which is the organization that I lead. And we're basically kind of a mid-market call center. So we do a lot of contact center and a lot of different contact center activities, primarily inbound, mostly in tech support, and primarily in the telecom, in the telecommunications vertical is where we started back in 1993. So it was kind of the early days of the Wild West internet, and I started in 2003, which was kind of the peak of the original .com bubble. I was in college, and I needed a job, and this one was air conditioned, and I've always liked interacting with people, and I think that's really what kind of it turned it from a kind of a summer job to, hey, I really love this, and we were moving fast, we were growing quickly, and I was able to really make a difference in the organization, and it's almost 18 years later, and here I am, and I've worn virtually every hat you can wear and performed a role at virtually every level of our organization at this point. So it's been really cool, very dynamic, very fast paced. We started when we started, we were a pretty small company. There were 80 people. I think it was the 80th person. And I think this year we crested over 2,500.
Wow.
So, for a privately held organization, we're a pretty conservative company. We're not out there, trying to get venture or anything like, do anything crazy like that. We're really trying to build a sustainable, family-oriented, and steady environment for our employees and for ourselves, of course. As part of that. We're a very family-oriented company, very stability-oriented company, and we've been able to really achieve that goal of consistent growth and sustainable growth. And so yeah, very, very happy to be here, and happy to be happy to talk to you about I've learned, picked up along the way, I guess.
That's cool. So it's really interesting. That is rare. I mean, for somebody to come out of college in 2000, in 2003, in the early 2000s, in mid to early 2000s, and to be at a company for 18 years, like that's like, that's like straight baby boom.
It's like unicorn level.
That is unicorn level craziness. Like,
yeah,
did
in
you
this day
know?
and age, it really is. Yeah.
Like, what about that? Like, what about the company? Like, why'd you stick with them in the early days? Why'd you stay on? Like, did they have, because I mean, I know that you're talking about, stability and just being able to like,
Yeah.
how did they provide the growth opportunities for you to feel like you're progressing in your life and your career, but at the same time still have all that stability? Like, how did they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and I think that the real key, we're here to talk about networking, right? The key is that everyone at the company was genuine, right? Like we never, there weren't anything that was like, we've, like, even my exec team, like, we've been together, some of us have worked together for my entire tenure, right? Or actually longer than that in this case, in some cases, and the fact is that, like, nobody lets anyone's ego get too big. We all kind of keep our feet planted, and we keep each other grounded. And I think that was one of the things that really attracted me to the company to begin with, is that everybody was doing their own thing. Everybody, like, it was kind of Austin in the early 2000s, and I'm based in Austin, and it was when we were kind of evolving from being the slacker town of the 70s to the I guess fledgling tech hub that we've become, which comes with requisite traffic problems. But the thing that I think was really the thing that was really operative for me is that the people were there. I was able to really get out and learn a lot very quickly. Like, responsibility came easy, right? Like, if you could prove that you're up to the task of management and leadership, you were able to do that. I was able to do that even when I was on the call center floor as a tech.
Hold on a sec, Ryan. One thing
Sure.
I wanted to chat with you about was, there was something you mentioned before, just like when you were there, you said everybody was just genuine. Everybody was just like, there was a lot of just authenticity within the organization, within the culture. I guess what I'd be curious to know is, how did you know that? Like, if this was your college job, like, did you have other jobs before that? Like, I just feel like at that age, you don't have the luxury of perspective. Like, I feel like one of the things I see so often, I mean, you see this from professional sports athletes to, I mean, I'm a huge Chicago Cubs fan. I was just reading an article about John Lester, who's a pitcher who went to the Nationals and now got traded to the Cardinals. And he even gave advice to some of the guys the Cubs traded recently, like, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Everybody, like, the luxury of perspective is powerful. How could you know that, okay, not every company culture is genuine like this? How did you know that this was something special?
It's a great question. And it wasn't really apparent probably in the first, like, year or two, other than this was a college job, right? When I was the first year, like, I started working part-time, right? I was working like 25, 30 hours a week or something, doing stuff in the evenings. And then, I graduated and ended up going full-time. And I was full-time for probably about 6 months before they started picking me up for to be a team lead, learning to be a supervisor, learning to, take that management responsibility on, which was one of the things that kept me there, right? Like, that was kind of the thing that was a little bit sticky, is that I was moving quickly, and I personally am somebody who very much gravitates towards leadership, and I like that responsibility. I like being in charge, and this was a way that I could do that. Where, I mean, I'm coming out of business school at UT. It's like, okay, well, you can go work for Accenture, and like, and it's not a bad path, right? It's a great path if you can make it work for you. But it's a very clearly defined path of, like, you're an analyst and then so on and so forth. And so you really know what you're getting into. Whereas this was exciting, right? And it was fun. And so for the first, that was kind of the first year or two. And then, like, probably into that, my first year of management, when I was starting to wear a lot of different hats. Like, we were having recruiting problems. So I did some recruiting, right? There was a problem to solve with, like, people like morale problems or some of those type of things. So I would go tackle that. And so it was a lot of different stuff. But the real key that I knew that I was in a good spot was when I started dealing with our clients, right? I started seeing the other side, right? And the thing that I think always really jumped out at me was how stoked everybody was to see how we did things as an organization, right? And how happy they always were to partner with us, and how much fun we were having going to work. And and I can tell you, like, we've served, obviously. I mean, you read off all of sizes of organizations and stuff like that. There's a lot of them have a lot of red tape. A lot of them have a lot of various other things. Some of them are pretty cool and agile organizations. But for us, it was always like, man, like we're able to do, I'm able to do an awful lot and execute and really, really be rewarded for my ideas coming to fruition and my, and the things that I've taken ownership of and driven to, when I drive that success, it's a direct reward for me and my team. But additionally, it's also something that's rewarding for our clients, and they're seeing that we're kind of thinking out of the box, that there's not a bunch of rules and red tape and stuff like that. And I think that, I mean, this is kind of a long and like awkward way to get to this, but the fact is that that's really, especially once I reach the executive level, I'm starting to do the deal architecture and really, consult and understand our partners' businesses and kind of where their challenges are and stuff like that, and where we can adapt our processes or our ideas to solve their problems. That's really been the place where where I guess it kind of lent that perspective, right? Where you're like, man, I'm in a good spot here. I'm moving the needle. I'm moving the needle in my organization. I'm being pulled along with that success. It's not like I came up with a great idea and then and then I handed it to somebody who took all the credit, and here I am, and I get to go home and then do it again next week. Like, when we succeeded, I came along. I shared in that success, and and we solved problems together. And I think that right there was it. In the fabric of our organization, that's the glue, right? Is that we succeed together, we fail together, and then we all like do a lot to I think that we see the value in the work and the value in the ideas, and we also and we cultivate that in our organization, right? Like, if you've got an idea, you've got something to do, we'll throw you the ball, and you work yourself into a job. We've accomplished so much by listening to the people on our team and the people that are investing in us. And
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated by that. I think there's a lot of really interesting components to what you just said there. I mean, I think like even extrapolating this as like on a higher level of just thinking, like, if I'm a student watching this right now, and I might be thinking to myself, like, okay, cool, this is interesting. Like, this guy stayed at this company for like 19 years. That's pretty crazy. Like, I would not have envisioned that I would do something like that. But I think a couple of key things that you're really highlighting right now. One, it is the power of expectations meeting reality. I mean, the fact that the thing that stood out to you so much, so heavily, so significantly was this thing that when you would chat with your clients of the company, and the clients were so satisfied to have received your product. I mean, one, they had the benefit of perspective. So they've had crappy customer service experiences, and then they started using you guys, and it worked out substantially better. They were much more pleased with the results. That there's some power in that. The pride of doing good work and the ability to do good work, I think, is really powerful. And the fact that they really cared. So I think if you're a student out there and you're watching this right now and you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, cool, I'm about to pursue this first job or this first internship or this next career move. I think what's probably really critical is that you think about, are you doing good work? Are you doing right by your customers? I think that's probably a really powerful thing. I think the other big component that you've illuminated is the ability to move around within an organization. I think that's probably really critical as well. I think all of us strive to learn and grow and develop as humans in general. And so as we continue to develop ourselves as young professionals, seeking out opportunities to learn new skills and abilities is critical. And some companies will be forthright and rather proactive about helping us get those varying experiences. But some companies might be like, hey, we're going to hire you, and keep you here and for as long as we can in a role. And it'll be up to you to drive those conversations, which is the purpose of our conversation today, which is networking in a genuine way. And I would love to learn, just as you continue to progress throughout One Support, rather, I guess what I'd be curious to know, I know this might seem silly, you don't have to name any names, but I'd love to learn stories for people that just didn't quite get the culture. What was that like? Did you ever work with somebody who like just they didn't network in a genuine way? They were really transactional. They just were like always trying to go tit for tat, quid pro quo for anything that they did, and they eventually left. They eventually like just didn't make it. Like, do you have any stories of that where people?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously like plenty of folks who, I mean, we're a call center, right? We turn a lot of people over, right? I always tell people, contact center is like driving a Corvette. You either really love it or you really hate it. But or working in a contact center, and I'm sure a lot of your students have had the pleasure or displeasure, depending on their personality, of getting that opportunity at some point. But just to your previous point, you said you're getting to move around, there's portability in your organization, all those things. There's one thing that my boss told me, the founder of our company, Anthony, and he always asked me. He said, "Are you having any fun?" Right? And if the answer ever changes that you're not having fun doing what you're doing, you're having a bad time doing it. Like, it might be hard, right? It might, you might be in the middle of the suck, I guess. But if you're having fun and you're challenged, you're going to do good work. You're going to have, and that's going to infect everyone in your organization, everyone that you work with around you. Because if we're all having fun, it's a lot easier to succeed, right? And why would you do something that you're not having any fun at, right? Like, you only got one life to live, and don't be miserable, right? Like, don't do something that's going to make you miserable if you can all. Like, there's going to be times when it sucks, right?
Sure.
Like, if it's like, don't confuse hard with not having any fun.
Yeah.
But I think that there's, he's a lot better at brevity and like colloquial wisdom than I am. But I think that's the thing that's always stuck with me is that, he said, "Hey, Ryan, you having any fun?"
I'd love to ask the students a question real quick. Yeah. Just post in the comments section. What are the ways, like when you have had your jobs, whether it be part-time jobs or internships or even volunteer experiences, like when have you had the most fun at a job? Post in the comments section, just what was going on? What was the scenario? Who were you doing with? What were you doing? Why was it fun? Post in the comment section, because I think that's such a valid point. Like, we don't ever think about the fact that work can be fun. It really should be fun. There should be elements that are really fun to work. And if we're not conscientiously aware of that, or if we're not even conscientiously taking audits, like self-reflection of like, am I having fun? We could be in a scenario where we're getting burnt out and we don't even realize it until it's really bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, and that's I think that's really that's really the bottom line. That's been the longevity. Is that if I'm doing something where like kind of like, I don't know about this, then that's one of the other things at One Support that's been so great, is that if I don't know about this, then I figured there's probably some other people that don't know about this either, and we can figure it out. Like, we can find something we can find a better path. We can do something new, and do something that's going to be interesting and fun, right? Yeah. Bottom line is that we're you obviously got to make a living, right? And I think coming out of school, that's a strong focus, and that's where your focus should be, right? Like, especially if you're young, you need to be making a name for yourself. You need to be working hard, but fun and hard work are not mutually exclusive, and that's it's and a lot of times the fun doesn't just come in the payoff. The fun is in the journey getting there, right? And all the silly stuff that happens. And just to your second point, where you're asking like, well, are there people that don't meet the culture, don't or don't or have kind of like just kind of fallen by the wayside of the organization? A lot of times it really is like, I feel like we've been lucky in that we have a very inclusive culture. And sometimes, as the organization's gotten bigger, that's one of the things where we go, like me and some of the guys that have been there a long time, and we'll kind of reminisce about the old days, about like, how, at the very beginning, somebody set up a rope swing in the warehouse and, on the overnight shift, or did something like incredibly, exercised incredibly poor judgment or whatever it might be in one way or another. But, the fact is that I think that really, to the point of somebody that's leaving the organization, it's that we, for whatever reason, were not able to meet their needs. And I, as a leader, usually regard it as a failure of some type. But I also think that there's another point where, so if we're not able to meet their needs because their needs are reasonable, then that's on us. A lot of times people also move on because they've outgrown what we can offer them at any time. And I always say that. I said that there's one guy that used to work for me, great guy. I really, really liked him. And, he ended up moving on and taking a role of different organization and operations. And before I was in sales, I was in operations. So it's, I had a large, couple layers of, 1,000, 1,500 people working in my organization at one point. And this was about that time, and it was one of those business units. And he fit in. He was a good dude. Culturally, he wasn't 100% comfortable with, with everything that we had going on. But, and he decided to go look elsewhere. Very successfully moved on to the next phase of his career. And he's doing great.
Would you say that was more of a product of him not necessarily fitting in with the culture, or just him kind of growing and like growing out? Because I think that's something that's real. I think that happens for a lot of professionals where, you get in your career, maybe you're a couple years into your role, 3, 4, 5, maybe. And then all of a sudden you say, hey, like, I feel like I've hit the ceiling of where I like to go, and I like to transition somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's actually the point I was getting to, is that I think the way I kind of looked at it with him, like, I went and shot pool with him the day that after he left, just to kind of close the book and stuff like that and wish him luck. And, and he was like, man, I don't want there to be, I said, dude, there's no hard feelings, right? I said, the whole point of this organization, I was not able to create an opportunity. Like, my clock ran out, right? It's like an hourglass. Man, and my clock ran out on being able to create an opportunity for you to fulfill your full potential. And I think that is kind of the other, that's the other point, right? Like, when it comes to measuring yourself or looking at what you're into as a, as you're trying to kind of gauge where you're at in your career. It's like, am I having any fun, and am I fulfilling my potential, right? Am I learning something? Because if you're not learning anything, it's going to become a grind. And guess what? You're not going to be having any fun, right? And then it becomes a vicious spiral. And the problem is that you're also just wasting your time, right? And that's a two-way street, right? Everything is a two-way street, and at least in my opinion, right? Life is a two-way street. Like, you give and you can take. And it's the same thing with employment or with our organization. I wasn't able to create a role big enough because, whether we didn't sell it, whether we didn't, close a big enough deal to give him a full engagement, make him a director, whatever that might be, he had the potential, he had the chops to do it. There's no doubt. And we had a guy who was underemployed, and I did not have a pathway to get him where he needed to be. And he realized that, and he made a move, and it was the right move at the time for him to make. It wasn't, there's no hard feelings there. He outgrew us faster than we were able to grow and find an adequate home for him. And luckily, we've been able to do that with, we grow most of our leadership from within. But fortunately, we don't always get them all, right?
Yeah, well, that's a good story, though. I love that. I think that's really great, Ryan. I think that's really interesting. It makes me kind of want to ask the students a question in our audience real quick, and that is, where do you see your own career progression going? Post in the comments section, like, what would you like to see in 3 years, 6 years, 9 years, 12 years? Like, where would you like to see your own progression grow and develop? I think it would be good to kind of lay that out, because then if you can have an idea of like where you would like to be when you go into your company, and you can start having a dialogue with your colleagues and your manager, you can kind of lay out the goals and the areas of where you would like to go and grow within an organization. Because I think if we can set more clear expectations with each other, but in a genuine way, we can get ourselves there. Because there are a lot of times where you've got somebody who doesn't have the experience or hasn't really earned the credibility, and they come out and they say, hey, I demand to be in this management role, or I demand to get up to this level. And that's not the way you want to do it either, because that's not genuine networking as well. That's not genuine conversations. It's people making demands and then feeling frustrated when they're not coming to fruition. So how, I guess what I would say, the question I have is, when I'm in a role within my work, how can I genuinely broach that subject of, okay, I would love to work towards this goal, this outcome, this area of the business. How can I do this in a genuine way?
Sure. And one of the things that I notice, all the people that move quickly for in our organization always bring a solution, right? Like they bring a demonstrated understanding of the problem that they're trying to solve, and they bring the solution. And it may not, in many cases, it's a solution that is based on their perspective, right? And that is
okay. Let's wait. Hold on a second. Let me recap
that's a
that.
key thing, right?
I think that's really critical what you just said, because so often when we think about promotions and goals and driving, we think about like how I can get there. But what you just said, think about a solution. That's so critical, because as students, if you're listening to this, you got to realize, like, as an organization, they're trying to achieve their goals. And if you can implant yourself as a key to helping them, the organization, achieving their goals, they can help put you in the position of getting to where you want to be. But it's not about the organization implanting them in your life to help you achieve the title and accolades you would like to achieve. And I think if you can think about it that way, that could be really helpful for just genuine networking and genuinely putting yourself in a position to thrive within an organization.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like, if you, I mean, like, I think a lot of people and, a lot of organizations fall into this trap too. It's like, what makes you buy something, right? Like, just, it's that simple, right? It's like, it's an organization is a relationship, right? Like what, work is a relationship. The relationship you have with your employer is a relationship, just like a personal relationship or something else like that. And it's a give and take. And, we, like, one of the things that I think is always a big indicator of potential to me, that makes me want to mentor somebody or take them under my wing, or that reflects that they have a level of ambition, is, whether it's ambition for something within the organization or to go do something else. Sometimes we've done that too. I mean, there's a great story of a guy that really wanted to be like a network, senior network admin or something like that, and he was getting his feet wet in the call center, right? Starting at the bottom, right? And he's doing great right now too, but he did it all himself, right? But the thing is that ambition, that's what when you bring a solution and you really try to engage within the perspective that you have, a lot of times somebody, that you're bringing that solution to, that has the power to help you get there or solve that problem in an organization, is interested in they're interested in the fact that you did it, right? That you brought that, or that you brought it. And they'll also be able to kind of open the door to, hey, maybe this particular solution isn't going to work, and here's why, right? But then you can say, okay, well, that's not failure. That's learning something about the organization that's learning something. And that's really the gist of, that's the key of networking, right? Is to go back, right? Use what you learn, listen, and then let that person kind of bring you along, right? That's because they can teach you what you need to know to solve the problem the right way. Right.
What's really interesting about that, Ryan, is that what you really highlighted, which I think was really powerful, was the willingness to ask somebody for guidance and help, especially when you didn't need that. I'd love to ask the students a question real quick. Post in the comment section. When was a time that you asked somebody for guidance, for help, for teaching, when was the time that you asked somebody to educate you on something when you didn't need to ask them? Like, it wasn't like a class requirement. It wasn't like the professor told you to go out and meet with these people, but you genuinely were curious about an answer to a question, and you reached out to somebody for guidance to help you learn about that area because you were genuinely curious. Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about that, because I think that's such a powerful message right there. Like, that's genuine networking. Genuine networking is genuine curiosity to want to learn and grow and develop from somebody else in a way that is not necessarily giving you some tangible outcome like a job or an internship, but is giving you maybe an emotional or a mental outcome of just learning something new about somebody or something else.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think I think that's what, I mean, you got to remember, like the people that are in that organization are there because hopefully because they're having fun, right?
Yeah.
And because this is fun for them. And in many cases, especially like we're a smaller organization. We're not like some massive corporate juggernaut or something like that. But even then, it doesn't matter. If you meet the CEO of a Fortune 500 and they're not excited about the organization that they're leading, they ain't going to be CEO for very long, right? Like that's, it is something where you have to derive love and satisfaction and you have to love what you're doing to be able to be a leader in your organization. And when you're approaching a leader in that organization, if you can keep that in mind, they want to share that love, right? Because that's that's what you do. It's like, it's just like anytime, like, like for example, I was on like this, completely abstract, like not work related at all, right? I was on this like, co-ed soccer team, right? And there's one thing that you guys should know about me is that I am like perennially one of the worst soccer players of all time, right? But I wasn't there to get good at soccer, right? I was there to meet people and, and basically, have a good time with some like-minded folks and maybe, see if there was somebody want to go out on the weekend or something like that, right? And if you think about that, like, approaching somebody who is good at soccer and they realize that I'm showing up to practice, they realize that I might be hopeless as a striker, but that they could teach me to like kick the ball far or something like that. I was able to contribute to the team to the point where I wasn't a burden. And that's and I think that was, that's an organization that I wasn't able to contribute a ton to because I'm like a no talent hack when it comes to soccer. But I was able to be part of that organization because I was committed to, the fundamentals, right? Like, and I was able to learn a lot from it and gain some lifelong friends as a result.
That's great. That's
and
awesome.
I say that because it's like, well, there's a super low stakes networking type environment, right? It's like, the social soccer team, right? But if you take that idea and then apply it to what you're doing at work and, and apply it to the office, like everybody on the team is trying to win. Like you're not trying to just go out there and like suck and lose, right? That's the same thing, except that stakes are higher at work, right? Like, or in an organization, it's a competitive world and you want to win and you want to be a contributor on that winning team. And the top players on that team want people who are committed to winning and committed to making the organization successful. And you always have something to offer, right? And and sometimes it's not always immediately obvious, but if you keep plugging away, they'll tell you what it is. Like it'll kind of unmask itself.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Ryan, this has been a really great workshop. I feel like we've covered some really important topics within the realm of just networking in a genuine way. The last thing I just love to ask is, how can our students learn more about you and your work? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally happy to reach out. Totally happy to, obviously sometimes at a premium, but if anybody wants to talk, I'm happy to do that. For me, it's always super interesting to, to get into those type of conversations because having been at One Support for as long as I've been there, sometimes it's cool to really, hear somebody from that I wouldn't necessarily interact with. It's not necessarily kind of in my standard swim lane. So I not only would say, can you connect with me on LinkedIn? If you want some time, you want 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that to talk, I'm happy to do it. I love to meet new people and I love to talk. And especially, as you can tell, I love to talk about my work and just talk in general. So thanks, Garrett, for having me.
Yeah, this has been fun. This has been great. Well, I really appreciate you being here, Ryan. Students, I thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you, everybody.